Hey there, beer lovers! Whether you're a casual sipper or a craft beer connoisseur, there's something truly special about this golden beverage that has captured the hearts and taste buds of people all around the world. Let's talk about everybody's favorite beverage. Beer has a rich and fascinating history that spans thousands of years and countless cultures. It's more than just a drink. It's a symbol of community celebration and tradition. Beer. It's been around for ages, you know? From ancient civilizations to modern-day breweries, beer has evolved and adapted, but its essence remains the same. We're talking way back, like ancient Sumeria. Imagine a time when the wheel was a new invention, and yet people were already brewing beer. That's right, those clever Mesopotamians were brewing beer as early as 7000 BC. They discovered that fermenting grains produced a delightful and intoxicating beverage. They even had a goddess of beer named Ninkasi. Talk about dedication. Ninkasi was revered and celebrated, and her hymn is one of the oldest known recipes for brewing beer. Now, you might be thinking 7000 BC, what did they know back then? Well, it turns out, quite a lot. They had developed sophisticated brewing techniques and tools that laid the foundation for modern brewing. Well, let me tell you, these guys were onto something. They understood the importance of quality ingredients and the fermentation process, which are still crucial in brewing today. They knew that beer wasn't just a drink, it was a social lubricant, a religious offering, and even a form of payment. Beer played a central role in their daily lives and ceremonies. That's right. You could get paid in beer. It was a valuable commodity, used in trade and as wages for workers. Imagine getting your paycheck in beer. Fast forward a few thousand years and beer is still going strong. From ancient brewers to modern craft beer enthusiasts, the passion for beer has never waned. It's enjoyed all over the world, from the pubs of Ireland to the beer gardens of Germany, and why not? Each culture has its own unique brewing traditions and styles, making beer a truly global phenomenon. It's a delicious and refreshing drink that brings people together. Whether it's a casual get-together with friends or a grand celebration, beer is often at the heart of the festivities. So the next time you crack open a cold one, take a moment to appreciate the long and storied history of this amazing beverage. Cheers to the past, present, and future of beer. Alright folks, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What exactly goes into making beer? It's a question that has intrigued many, from casual drinkers to passionate brewers. Well, it all boils down to 4 key ingredients: water, barley, hops, and yeast. These 4 elements come together in a symphony of science and art to create the beverage we all love. Think of them as the Fantastic Four of the beer world. Each one plays a crucial role, and without any one of them, the magic simply wouldn't happen. First up, we've got water. It's the foundation of beer, the canvas upon which all other flavors are painted. It might seem obvious, but water is the main ingredient in beer, making up over 90% of its volume. The mineral content and pH of the water can significantly influence the taste and quality of the final product. And not just any water will do. Brewers often go to great lengths to ensure their water is just right, sometimes even treating it to achieve the perfect balance. The quality of the water can have a big impact on the final taste of the beer. Next, we've got barley. This humble grain is where the magic really starts. Barley is malted, which means it's soaked in water, allowed to germinate, and then dried in a kiln. This process develops the enzymes required to convert the grain starches into fermentable sugars. Barley provides the sugars that yeast will eventually ferment into alcohol. The type of barley and the way it's malted can add different flavors and colors to the beer, but we'll get to that later. Then there's hops. These little green cones are what give beer its characteristic bitterness and aroma. Hops are the spice of beer. They balance the sweetness of the malt with their bitterness and add complex flavors and aromas ranging from citrusy to piney. They also act as a natural preservative, which is pretty handy. The variety of hops and the timing of their addition during brewing can create a wide range of beer styles. And last but not least, we've got yeast. These tiny single-celled organisms are the real workhorses of the brewing process. Yeast ferments the sugars extracted from the barley, producing alcohol and carbon dioxide in the process. Different strains of yeast can impart different flavors and characteristics to the beer. They're the ones that convert the sugars from the barley into alcohol and carbon dioxide. This fermentation process is what transforms a sweet, malty liquid into the beer we know and love. Without yeast, there's no beer. It's as simple as that. So next time you take a sip, remember the incredible journey these 4 ingredients have taken to bring that beer to your glass. Cheers to the Fantastic Four of brewing. So we've got our barley. Now what? Well, before we can make beer, we need to turn that barley into something that yeast can actually eat. That's where malting comes in. Malting is basically a controlled germination process. We trick the barley into thinking it's time to grow by soaking it in water and then spreading it out on a floor to germinate. As the barley germinates, it produces enzymes that break down the starches into simpler sugars. Once the germination process is complete, we stop it by drying the barley with hot air. This is called kilning. The kilning process also plays a role in developing the color and flavor of the beer. The end result is malted barley, which is full of fermentable sugars that yeast just can't resist. It's like a buffet for yeast. Now let's talk about hops. These little cones might not look like much, but they pack a punch when it comes to flavor. Hops are what give beer its characteristic bitterness, which helps to balance out the sweetness from the malt. But hops aren't just about bitterness. They also contribute a wide range of aromas and flavors to beer, from citrusy and floral to piney and earthy. The type of hops used, as well as when they're added during the brewing process, can have a big impact on the final flavor profile of the beer. Think of hops like the spice rack of the beer world. Just a pinch of this or a dash of that can make all the difference. Section 5. Yeast's magic turning sugar into booze. Alright, we've got our malted barley and our hops. Now it's time to introduce the star of the show, yeast. Yeast is a single-celled fungus that eats sugar and produces alcohol and carbon dioxide as byproducts. It's basically a microscopic alcohol factory. In brewing, we add yeast to the cooled-down, sugary liquid extracted from the malted barley called wort. The yeast gets to work, munching on the sugars and producing alcohol and CO2. This process is called fermentation, and it's what transforms the wort from a sweet liquid into beer. Fermentation typically takes a few days to a few weeks, depending on the type of beer being brewed. During this time, the yeast works its magic, converting the sugars into alcohol and CO2, which creates those lovely bubbles you see in your beer. Section 6. Lagers and ales, a tale of two temperatures. Now you might have heard the terms lager and ale thrown around in the beer world. These two categories of beer are often the starting point for many beer enthusiasts. But what really sets them apart? But what do they actually mean? It's not just a matter of taste or color. The distinction goes much deeper, right down to the microscopic level. Well, it all comes down to the type of yeast used and the temperature at which fermentation takes place. Yeast is a crucial ingredient in beer making, and different strains of yeast behave differently under various conditions. Ales are brewed using top fermenting yeast, which prefers warmer temperatures. This yeast rises to the top of the fermentation vessel and works best in a temperature range of 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 to 24 degrees Celsius. This type of yeast ferments at the top of the wort and produces beers with a wide range of flavors from fruity and spicy to malty and caramel-like. The warmer fermentation temperatures encourage the production of esters and phenols, which contribute to these complex flavors. Lagers, on the other hand, are brewed using bottom fermenting yeast, which prefers cooler temperatures. This yeast settles at the bottom of the fermentation vessel and works best in a temperature range of 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 to 13 degrees Celsius. This type of yeast ferments at the bottom of the wort and produces beers that are generally crisper and cleaner than ales. The cooler fermentation temperatures slow down the yeast activity, resulting in fewer esters and phenols, which gives lagers their characteristic clean and crisp profile. So, the next time you're choosing between a lager and an ale, remember, it's all about the yeast. Understanding the role of yeast in fermentation temperature can enhance your appreciation of these two distinct styles of beer. Whether you prefer the complex flavors of an ale or the clean finish of a lager, there's a whole world of beer to explore. Section 7. Craft beer, a revolution in the making. For a long time, the beer world was dominated by big industrial breweries churning out mass-produced lagers. But in recent years, there's been a revolution brewing. A craft beer revolution. Craft breweries are smaller, independent breweries that are passionate about making high-quality, flavorful beers. They're not afraid to experiment with different ingredients and brewing techniques, which has led to an explosion of exciting new beer styles. From hoppy IPAs to sour beers and barrel-aged stouts, there's a craft beer out there for everyone. So next time you're at the store, Why not skip the mass-produced stuff and grab a bottle or can from a local craft brewery? You might just discover your new favorite beer. Section 8. The Art of Brewing, More Than Meets the Eye. Brewing beer might seem like a simple process on the surface, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. It's a delicate dance of science and art, where precision and creativity go hand in hand. Brewers spend years honing their craft, learning about the different ingredients, processes, and techniques that go into making great beer. They're like culinary chemists, constantly experimenting and tweaking their recipes to create the perfect balance of flavors and aromas. So the next time you raise a glass of beer to your lips, take a moment to appreciate the artistry and craftsmanship that went into making it. It's more than just a drink, it's a labor of love. Section 9. Conclusion, cheers to beer. From its humble beginnings in ancient Mesopotamia to the craft beer revolution of today, beer has come a long way. It's a drink that has been enjoyed for centuries, bringing people together and quenching thirsts all over the world. So there you have it. A crash course in the wonderful world of beer. Now you know what goes into making your favorite brew, from the malting of the barley to the role of yeast in fermentation. The next time you crack open a cold one, take a moment to appreciate the history, science, and artistry that went into making it. Cheers.